Hello and welcome back to Fast Action Friday. We are straight into week 2, and to run through it all with me, I have the full team back together. Welcome back, Lewis. But first of all, hello, Rob. How are you doing?
Hello, I am very well. It was a fairly successful week 1 in terms of some fantasy leagues. Funnily enough, not a lot of the leagues that I did well in were actually people that I've just joined in, just helping out in their fantasy football leagues. I was like, yeah, I kind of know what I'm talking about. Gone like 0-1 in pretty much all of them. So I don't look too good at the moment in those leagues, but in like the charity leagues and like some 5 yard leagues, I'm looking pretty good. So hopefully we can continue that this week. And as you've just said, we have Lewis back as well. Lewis, how are you doing, man?
It is great to be back. I was gutted to miss last week, but other things come first, unfortunately. And we're doing all right. Week 1 was hit and miss all over the place, and I think everyone who's in multiple leagues will feel exactly the same after week 1. And JTT Cup, I think I was like the 4th highest scorer or something week 1. Scott Fishbowl,
Nice.
I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in the bottom 5 or 6 scorers after week 1, and it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Don't even get me started on that. I had a shocker.
Oh, we can start. We can start on that if you want. I'm absolutely fine to start talking about Scott Fishbowl scoring. I think it was like the top 50. Was it 56? I can't remember what I put on the group, but yeah, I am up there. And Kirk Chains and Addison did a nicely decent job for me last night. What about you, Pittsy? How any leagues going well for you?
Yes.
To be fair, took a while.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of bad stuff going on right now. But to be fair, I got my first win of the season in the Ballers League, which is our home dynasty league. So I'll take that. Apart from that, everywhere was shocking, absolutely shocking. I got a couple of wins, but not from teams that I thought I was going to win. I think I was listening to the Rich, obviously Dynasty Island. He was saying all these good teams were rubbish and all these bad teams were good. So it was one of those weekends, wasn't it?
It certainly was, and nice to mention the Ballers League. Ballers League has got some crazy scoring, but crazy scoring plus crazy matches equals just absolutely off the scale results. So hopefully things are a bit more back to normal for all leagues this week, and I think that's how we can help. But let's first talk about last night's game, where some matches will have already started, some fantasy leagues. It is Thursday night. Throwback. had to hold on there.
Nice.
Last week we didn't actually mention the final score of the game, so I think we should probably do that tonight. Because we covered all the stats, but didn't actually mention how the game finished out. And I think it's actually important for this game because in the quarterback coverage, one quarterback did really well, other quarterback didn't do as well, but did all right. But the final score for the Vikings, for Lewis's Vikings versus the Philadelphia Eagles was Vikings 28, Eagles 34. And I'm sure we'll have a talk about how Lewis feels about that in a little bit, because he's had a good season last year, and it's not started the best, but we'll get his opinion on that in a little bit. First of all, let's talk about Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins had a tough game in this matchup last year, so there wasn't a lot of optimism going into it from a fantasy perspective or even from an NFL perspective, just because of how much he got thrown around last year. However, he lit up the stat line this season. He got 31 completions of 44 attempts with 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He started off the day with scoring the first touchdown of the day with TJ Hawkinson. He did lose a fumble in the start of the second half to put a dampener on a comeback effort after the Eagles took the lead. And as we saw, they kind of resorted to majority of the passing game. They liked chasing the game. So there was a 62-yard strike to Addison as well. Addison shrugging off that defender to get into the end zone. And then he had a second red zone touchdown to KJ Osborne. And then a third red zone touchdown for Hawkinson's second score of the game. So, his success getting into that final 10, that final 20 seems to be going really well in terms of the passing game. And for all the Vikings' lack of success in winning, Cousins has exploited opponents' defenses for their weaknesses, and he has racked up some impressive yards and touchdowns already. So a good turnout for Cousins there. On the other side of the ball, we've got Jalen Hurts. Excuse me. He got 18 completions on 23 attempts for 193 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And he's also got his 12 carries for 35 yards and 2 butt push touchdowns. Try saying that 3 times fast when you've had a few. Hurts looked quite frustrated in how his passing turned out in the game. Like, a lot of his completed passes were on the flat and on a few screen plays. So Dallas Goedert and DeAndre Swift were the main beneficiaries there. He did complete some passes to Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, just not as much. The deep shots he took didn't pan out that often. I think the Vikings were ready for it. The long pass to Smith in the first drive picked up 54 yards and got on that field goal. But the next one ended up as an interception. So they're a mixed bag in terms of the results from his long game. And his running game, they were ready for that as well. I think Brian Flores were preparing for Hurts to do some long runs. So his main runs came around the outside of the line. I think after losing Shane Steichen at the end of last year, I think they just need to rediscover themselves. And they've obviously done well. They've got 2-0, but I think the offense isn't what it was previously.
Yeah, it was tricky it was a tricky one to kind of break down because the game didn't really feel like it was that exciting. But then I was going off onto the offensive coverage. Both teams had some big plays mixed in, which was a weird one. So they kind of started off shaky, and then the second half was a little bit better and kind of warmed up by getting those big plays in. Talking about the Eagles, then they had big games from Smith and Swift. Stormo's been on the Facebook chat, and he's already chomping about how good putting Swift in his team was good last night. Obviously, AJ seemed to be not very happy on the sidelines, so he was exchanging word with Hurts. So we'll see how that comes out. Look out for a big week next week from AJ if that has anything to do with it. Anyway, Swift, with no one left in that backfield to challenge him, he came out with a bang. He had 28 attempts for 175 yards with a touchdown and caught all 3 of his passes too. Smith, he got 5 targets, 4 receptions, but they were big as he got 131 yards from them and a touchdown. Compare that to AJ Brown, who had 6 targets, 4 receptions, but he only managed to get 29 yards off them. So interesting to see how that one pans out in the next few weeks. Goddard didn't seem to be a factor too much either. He had most of the targets though, so he had 7 for 6 receptions. But like AJ, just didn't do much with them, only getting 22 yards. And I like throwing this in because kickers are real people too. Elliott got 4 for 4 in his extra points, 2 for 3 of his field goal attempts, which one of them was over 60 yards. And I just like to throw that one in.
It was a beauty. It was a beauty.
It was. Vikings now. Mattison, had 8 attempts for 28 yards, caught 3 of his 6 targets. The biggest issue really was holding on to the ball, turning the ball over with these fumbles as well, which isn't great. It's not going to get you on the coach's top list. Addison, he went 5 for 3 for 72 and a touchdown, so a nice little day for him. JJ always doing JJ things, 13 for 11, 159 yards. Unfortunately, he fumbled across the goal line, which went down as a fumble for a loss, so negative points if you score it that way. And that went back to the Eagles 20, which I think is a ridiculous rule. But we'll get to that. Well, I won't even start into that. I think there's a few people who've been chatting about it anyway. Hockenson, he had a great day out as well. 8 for 7, 66, and 2 touchdowns. So nice day for him. And as you say, KJ Osborne also got on the list, 6 for 3, 34 yards, which isn't much to shout about, but he did get that touchdown.
He was wide. It looked like he was wide open for 2 of those targets as well. And he just dropped him. Like his hands weren't that reliable. Like obviously he got the wide open touchdown, but there were two balls. I wouldn't say it was on a Kadarius Toney level of drops, but you could tell he was getting frustrated, and you could tell that there should have been more there. It kind of cost him a little bit. It kind of put some end to some of the drives, but 6 for 3 isn't bad for a wide receiver 3, which he's looking to turn out to be now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we see the reasons why the Vikings drafted Jordan Addison in the first round, looking at KJ Osborne. But defensive coverage now from last night, and well, both these was pummeled on the night. Eagles through the air. Bradbury was a notable absence in the Eagles secondary, I think, and the Vikings just could not stop the run yet again. Over 800 total yards on offense last night, and the Eagles doing the majority of their share on the floor. Kirk Cousins through the air. I think we only ran the ball like 13 times in total or something like that last night, which is really, really low. We knew it'd be a pass-first offense, but that's still quite low, I think. But Daniil Hunter, he stood out on the night with 3 sacks for the Vikings. Theo Jackson, who's a safety that I'd never even heard of, got an interception. A bucket load of tackles all around for the Vikings, but they still allowed too many yards, obviously, on the ground, as we said, and points overall, really. But the Eagles, they got the Vikings off the field much quicker. Only the 2 sacks, but looking from a fantasy perspective, the Eagles scored 10 points, whereas the Vikings only came up with 6 with your DSTs.
Yeah, and I think Avante Maddox got injured last night as well for the Eagles' defense as well. So that's another player that they might be missing in the future. So whoever's got them next, in week 3, that might be something to watch out for. If it's someone who you know is going to pass to wide receivers, and I'll be putting those wide receivers in your lineups. They could do really well.
All right, then hold on to your hats. We are diving into the injury report. Yeah, this might take a while. There's a lot that went down over this last weekend, with it being the first game in. Obviously, massive notable ones is Aaron Rodgers and J.K. Dobbins out for the season, both on IR. Achilles injuries is not something that we want to see. It's a tough one to come back from. So, we'll start with Dobbins. After coming back with his ACL, just to come and get his Achilles gone, I'm absolutely devastated for him.
Yeah, and he'll be a big loss, won't he?
Yeah, and obviously, sorry, go for it.
No, carry on.
And a lot of Jets fans are obviously going to find this one even more devastating. Aaron Rodgers kind of going with that Achilles as well. You want to see the league have all its best players playing, and that after such a massive hype over the offseason, to lose Rodgers within the first seconds of the game, pretty much, it's not great. Anyway, we'll move on. Jimmy Garoppolo, he has an ankle injury. Monitor this one as it goes on, because we could mean Brian Hoyer coming in, or maybe too soon for Aidan O'Connell talk, but we shall see.
No, it's never too soon for Aidan O'Connell talk. We saw what it was like in pre-season. It's never too soon to get him in, especially when he's stashed on plenty of my taxi squads as well. Bring him out. We've also got hamstring injuries galore, as players have stepped off the preseason games and off the training camps into the fast-flying treadmill that is the regular season. The following is a list of those players who've already been limited or ruled out due to hamstring injuries for this week. So if you had Aaron Jones, Chris Evans, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, John Mechie, Kashawn Butte, Darren Waller, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, and Greg Dulcich have all suffered from the ailment in varying degrees. We have seen some of them come out and say, "I'll be ready," like Darren Waller, and we have seen some pretty much be ruled out already. So just make sure you are watching all those questionable players before you go into lineups on Sunday.
Yeah, that Broncos pass catching group is severely beat up again. Not even sure if Sean Payton can work his magic on that one. I don't. Although he's brought in everybody that the Saints didn't want, so we'll see what happens there. But we've also got a few players with knee injuries that would be sensible to monitor before game day as well. Big names include obviously Travis Kelce, who missed week 1. Breece Hall is coming off a season ender last year. He had a great week 1, but he's listed as questionable. Brandon Cooks, Raheem Mostert, Devontae Parker, Wandale Robinson, and DeAndre Carter also questionable after limited practices. Evan Hull, Colts running back rookie, has already been put on injured reserve due to a knee injury. So it's likely his involvement as main part of the Colts offense is over for this year.
Yeah, you got to feel for the lad. He managed to get in. Moss went out. Deion Jackson was faltering and fumbling, and then he gets in, and then he gets injured. So, like, it was almost the path cleared for him, and then it just came down on him again. So, yeah, hope he recovers okay, and it's not too bad, and he can come back.
Yeah, gutted, really. I think it's still on one of those boomerang IRs, so he's got the potential to come back. But yeah, he's trying to work out how severe it really is. So. Finally,
Something in
as
the
well,
water in the Indianapolis running back room, I think.
Finally, then, Jacoby Myers, after a fantastic week 1, he is doubtful still for this week with him being in concussion protocol. He took a massive hit during that game, so he is probably edging towards not being ready for this week.
Are we fancying Hunter Renfrow?
Nah, he never really comes in, does he?
Well, he didn't this year, but like he was a big part of the team when he was healthy last year, and the year before. Like he was a bit of a surprise, and that's what Myers' job was. He's come in to do that role, and Hunter Renfrow might have a chance to make it big again. You know,
should have had him as your flex of the week, Rob.
No.
All right, we'll move on. Right, straight into weak points. All right, so this week's weakest against quarterbacks. No surprises. The Chargers are top of the list after Tua destroyed them. They averaged around 28.1 points. This week they're going up against the Titans, so just watch that one. Not that Tannehill is anywhere near as pass heavy as Tua was, but we shall see. Eagles, they jumped into second place, 25.1%. Obviously, they were at home to Vikings last night. Cousins managed to throw a few long shots down there, so that definitely would not have helped them. And then the Bears there in third place, 23 points away at the Bucks. It was a surprising nice little attack from the Bucks last week. So whether they can carry on in week 2, that'll be a good one to watch.
Lewis, how did you feel about Cousins' chances going into this game?
So if I was covering sort of starts and sits, he would have been a sit, I think. The sort of range you'll draft him in, you'll probably have the QB2 shortly after, or he could be your QB2 and someone just before. And I would have been sitting him in any of those situations just because last year they were so good, the Eagles. And like you was mentioning, the offense seems a little bit different. The defense don't seem as deadly. But Cousins has started good this season. Saying about the Bucks though against the Bears, Baker Mayfield, he was all right against the Vikings last week as well. He seemed to have our number, and he could do the same again this week.
Do you think someone mentioned that Baker might actually be playing for the role so that he doesn't tank him, and like he keeps the job?
Yeah, I mean, crazy.
Fair play to him. Sure. Fair play to him. If he's going to do that and he's going to play out his skin, then why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's less the tale of the because he was first overall, wasn't he? It's less the tale of like the failed first overall now. It's like the tale of the underdog. You know, going to the Bucks. Let's turn him around. You know, so let's see what happens there. Weakest against running backs. So number one team is the Panthers. they got absolutely decimated by the combined force of Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. So that's why they currently peaked the list at 40.2 fantasy points conceded to him last week. They are at home to the Saints. So another divisional matchup, one that I don't expect to go well as a Panthers fan, but they are at home, and maybe they can use the power of the Bank of America Stadium to turn that around. But the stats say otherwise. Second are the Dolphins. They got run over by Joshua Kelly and Austin Eckler last week, 39.5 points, so only just a little bit worse than Bijan and Tyler. They are away at the Pats. So can Ezekiel Elliott and Ramondre Stevenson turn their fortunes around after last week and come away with something here? And then the third are the Bears again. So that's already two categories where the Bears are featuring in the top three. They were up against Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, who didn't do as well as he could have done. So I wouldn't say it was just AJ Jones here. Sorry, Aaron Jones. And they're away at the Bucs. So we thought Baker Mayfield was doing it with the quarterback. Is it going to be the same with Rashad White and Sean Tucker? What do we think?
Yeah. Well, no, I say yeah.
Very silent yes.
Well, yeah, it's more like what Baker's just done in week one, and if he's going to be throwing again, he's got some good wide receivers on that team. They've kind of been looking at that. It's more of a balanced offense if they can get it going against the Bears to get the running game as well. So it just depends on how far ahead they manage to get. I'm liking the Pats running backs though this week. I said it about Jones and the Green Bay Packers last week, and I'm liking the Pats against the Dolphins to run this week.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ramondre Stevenson had a very similar stat line to Aaron Jones this week. But the Bears, I think, could be in for quite a long night. The Buccaneers ain't fantastic, but Baker Mayfield's serviceable. He's shown it on numerous occasions in the past, and week one he was fine against a defense probably on par with the Bears. So we'll see what happens there. But weakest against wide receiver. Now, this first one is way out in front, and it's mostly because of one person, and he does it once or twice a year. The Chargers, 67.7 points. Wow. Absolutely torched by, of course, Tyreek Hill in week one. The Titans are in second, 40.3 points. So quite a difference in that. And Olave and Shaheed for New Orleans Saints both topped 19 PPR points. And the Chargers and Titans play each other this week. So the two worst defenses against wide receiver have a lovely matchup in week two. So do with that what you will. If you're trusting Ryan Tannehill against the Chargers, who was also poor against the quarterback, I mean, it could be a sneaky super flex of the week, maybe. But in third, the Buccaneers, 38.2, are at home to the Bears. So could we see Justin Fields attack the air a little bit more this week? And obviously DJ Moore will be there as a beneficiary. We'll see.
I think this will be a key indicator as whether or not they can do it against a weak defense. If they can't do it against the Bucs, then there is an issue. There's an issue with the Bears, and I think a lot of people are talking about it already. Not just in the skill players, but in the offensive line. You've got to have time to throw the ball that far, unless you want to do the screen pass, which worked well in the preseason.
Yeah, fair. The Chargers-Titans game, that looks like it could be, if it's going to be pass heavy, that'll be an interesting one. But then they've got King Henry, haven't they? So both running backs in that game can pass. Can catch, not pass. I mean, to be fair, they probably can pass as well. But good one to watch. Good one to watch. Right, weakest against the tight end, we go with Eagles. They are 19.2 points against the tight end. They are home to the Vikings last night, obviously, which we saw the 2 touchdowns for Hawkinson. It kind of said it all really. Adds to their stats for next week. Falcons, they were next on the list, 13.3. They are hosting the Packers. So their new tight ends might get a nice run out. And the Dolphins come third. They are 12.9 away at the Pats. Again,
so the
Henry, is it Henry that's there now?
yeah,
Henry
Hunter Henry
could feast as well. That would be nice. The Pats could end up getting if their defense plays like they did last week, they could cause some trouble for the Dolphins this week.
I think the Patriots duo are more likely to have a field day than the Packers are, because you've got Mike Gesicki there too, who's a great pass catcher, as well as Hunter Henry, who's obviously he's very good in man coverage. So for end zone touches, I think it was only 2 years ago he had like double-figure touchdowns or close on, and I think so. I think it could be an interesting one, that game actually.
Yeah, I think I heard a stat where of all the touchdowns that Mac Jones has thrown, Hunter Henry has received the most out of anyone. So he's got the rapport there, and there's clearly a positional weakness, and he just doesn't seem to. Matt just doesn't seem to have connected with Gesicki as much as anyone would have thought. So yeah, Hunter Henry to the end of the season. I think that would be a good partnership. Right, let's move on to Flex of the Week. Right, let's do this one. So I think last week we'll talk about the ones we had last week first before we go into our current week ones, because we did talk about trying to do a sandwich bet proposition. Sorry. And so, Pittsy, I definitely think you won that one. You had Brian Robinson, who did far better than Tyler Higbee did. So, yeah, I think you are 1 point up in the standings. We'll have to do it based on averages because obviously Lewis wasn't here last week. So we'll do it on an average base of performances on the show and points, things like that. So we'll work it out at the end. So my week 2 selection this week is Rashid Shaheed. He is definitely a flex play. I wouldn't consider him to be in the top 24 at the position. And they're up against the Panthers. Now, the Panthers were ranked 32nd in allowing points to wide receivers. That was just 4.6 points. So I bet people are questioning why I'm choosing them if they ranked last against wide receivers. Well, it's because the Panthers didn't face any targets from wide receivers when they played the Falcons. Like Drake London got one target, didn't catch it. There was no passing offense really to be seen from the Falcons when they played the Panthers last week. However, if we look at the team that the Saints played, the Titans, they finished second versus wide receiver, which was thought 40.3 points. So there's clearly a lot of points to be taken against any team that plays the Saints. And fingers crossed, it does transfer over to the Panthers this week. Shaheed's average depth of target in that game was 16.5 yards, and his average last year was 11.6 yards, so double figures already. Very promising if he can catch the ball, and he has not dropped a catchable ball in his 2 years in the league as well. So of all those targets, I think he had like 29 catchable balls. He caught all of them last year. He caught all his catchable balls in the last game. So again, promising, very safe pair of hands. New Orleans gave 80% of their targets to wide receivers last week, which was 5th in the league. And all 3 of them were equally involved. So if you combine all those factors together, you've got someone who can catch the ball deep, will get a lot of volume. And if you can add a touchdown in there against a defense that's missing JC Horn, who is doubtful for this game and potentially requiring surgery, they're missing a talisman, you could be onto a winner.
Tasty. There's obviously a lot of factors to kind of throw into that, but I like it. Well, it'd be interesting, especially the one I'm throwing out. Rashee Rice, he had a nice game last week. I admit this one could be a big issue for me. Last week he had 5 targets, 3 receptions, and got his touchdown as a nice little start to his season. He was probably the the best of a bad bunch from the Chiefs last week.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, with Tony and Moore coming off such a bad performance, I feel the Chiefs could try and get them a comeback game. Now, you may be screaming, well, obviously that means bad news for Rice. But I also think this is why it's a good thing for Rice, is that the Jags are also thinking they're going to be trying to get a comeback week next week, this weekend, and get the pressure on these two wide receivers, leaving some space for Rice to add to his touchdown from last week.
Not even the Jags thinking about it could be a comeback week for them. It could be like, well, if they're going to throw them the ball, they're so easy to shut down. Let's just pummel them. And then who's open again? Rashee Rice. Especially if Travis Kelce misses again. I think it's a great shout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We shall see.
I have also gone for a New Orleans Saints player. Not a wide receiver, though. I'm not as brave as Rob. I've gone for Jamal Williams. Now, we've seen his enormous amount of touchdowns last year, which carried his whole season. But he had 45 yards off of 18 carries last week, which isn't fantastic. But the Panthers, who the Saints are up against, allowed yards to a canter last week, with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both having top 12 weeks. So can Jamal Williams exploit that a little bit if the passing game ain't working too well, which was amazing last week, but we know what Derek Carr's like. Could there be a few more handoffs in the mix? Possibly. And, of course, we know he's dangerous in the red zone, as we seen last season. Tyler Algier was the RB4. Bijan Robinson was RB7 in week 1. 3 touchdowns from the Atlanta duo as well. I mean, it's kind of... It almost feels like a safe pick for Flex of the Week, which we don't really try to do. But I don't think he's got the same sort of... You could pick 24 running backs before Jamal Williams still, I think, this week.
Yeah, I reckon so.
But
I think you're right.
Jamal Williams.
I think it's a good shout.
I love him.
If it doesn't work for me, it'll probably work for you. So one of us is going to end up winning here, unless Rice has a massive game, and then Pittsy gets another point. So, which he's praying for. Any favoured games this week? Obviously, the Vikings have come and gone, Lou. But do you have anyone that you're keeping an eye on? Anyone you might be interested in watching?
Oh, I really like the Dolphins this year. I found it so hard to turn that game off last week and go to bed. I ended up staying up for the whole thing. And Tua just... I said it as well pre-season, and Tua's just... If he's healthy this year, he's just electric, isn't he? He's a lot better than... I think he's very underrated. Very underrated. I just love watching him. I don't know if it's because it's the left-hand thing as well. Like, it's fun to watch, isn't it? And I've got so much Tyreek Hill everywhere. If I was down the end of a first round, I was snapping him up this season, and the talent's unquestionable, isn't it? So, yeah, the Dolphins, really, I quite like them.
Nice. And, Pittsy, you've got the Steelers on Monday night. Monday night? You've got my Monday night, haven't you? In the double header against the Browns. Is there anyone else that you'd be looking at this weekend?
I want to see how the Falcons get on again. I want to see how those running backs are doing. I know it's a rubbish game, but I think I'm going to the Jags versus Falcons game at Wembley in a couple of weeks. So I want the Jags and the Falcons to be at their top-notch running abilities to be able to watch a good game there. So
I like it. I like it. Yeah. With Storm's put in the chat, he went to bed well angry last weekend because obviously he's a Chargers fan. And the Los Angeles Chargers left him unsatisfied yet again.
It should be used to it by now.
There's nothing appeared in the comments, so maybe he's gone to bed already.
Already angry.
Nice. Right, well, that comes to the end of the show. So all we can do now is watch and wait for week 2 to unfold, and get down on that sofa and watch Red Zone and watch our games on the Sunday night at 6. But folks, until then, keep rushing.